My father gaslit everyone into thinking I was a jealous murderer who drove my sister to suicide until I forced him into a confession that destroyed his life completely. I was 15 when I found out my 17-year-old sister Lily had pulled a Hannah Baker in the bathtub. She looked exactly like our mother. Same green eyes, same crooked smile. Dad couldn't hit mom anymore after she left, but Lily was right there, and she took every blow meant for me. Every drunken rage, every whiskey-fueled tantrum. The night she died, he'd been drinking since noon. I'd spilled juice on his work papers. She walked in as he grabbed my wrist, getting between us like always. He threw her against the wall, called her every name he used to call mom. She didn't fight back. Her eyes looked glazed, like she had decided a long time ago to give up. I wish I had crept into her room to give her one last hug, to tell her how much I loved her. But I was too scared, too focused on trying to survive. I found her at 9 a.m. The note said, "I'm tired of looking like her. Tell my sister she was worth every bruise. Love you forever, little one." Dad kept her ashes for 2 months before I found them in the kitchen trash, mixed with coffee grounds. "Made me think of your W-word mother," he slurred. "Better off in the garbage." I don't remember what I said. I think I just left. I felt hollowed out, like someone had scooped out everything inside me and filled it with broken glass. And somewhere between the rage and the emptiness, clarity hit. I wasn't going to scream or fight or report him. Justice was too clean for what he'd done. He deserved to drown in guilt until it ate him alive. I took the urn and started planning. His alcoholism would make this easy. Drunks already see things, hear things. I'd just help them along. I started recording his worst moments through the walls. Every horrible word he said about Lily. He'd say things like, best thing she ever did was string herself up. And because of the alcohol, it only took 3 days before he started getting paranoid. He'd pause mid-beer, look around, and just as he managed to convince himself he imagined it, I'd play the recordings on the speakers around the house again. His own miserable voice, everywhere. He started drinking alone at home, said bars were too loud. I was going to stop there, until one night when I found myself spraying Lily's perfume all over my clothes, trying to remember exactly how she smelled, how safe she made me feel. Except I had done this so many times that her perfume bottle ran out, and the grief hit me all over again, but something else hit me even harder, and that was my villain arc. On her 18th birthday, I had a prom dress delivered to his work, powder blue, size 2. The card, "For all the dances I'll never have. Love, Lily." His coworkers thought it was sweet. He came home shaking, deep-throating a bottle of vodka, trying to forget. Next, a college acceptance letter to her dream school, full scholarship. Then daily coffee deliveries, teen magazines, a singing birthday telegram that made him lock himself in the workplace bathroom. Each gift included a note. "You threw this away too. Still in the trash?" The packages piled up on his porch. Everyone saw them. Daily reminders of a daughter who should be living. His drinking doubled, started calling in sick. Vodka for breakfast became normal. Then came the number 17, her death age. I made it haunt him. His phone clock, always 1717 when he looked, thanks to a simple hack. Grocery receipts, always $17. I'd follow him shopping, buying, or returning items to make it work. License plates, thermostats, everything 17. Alcohol-soaked brains love patterns. His was primed to see them. Soon he found 17s I hadn't even planted. Started photographing everything, building a Hammered's evidence file of numerical persecution. The drinking accelerated. Blackouts became normal. He'd wake up to more 17 receipts, more gift deliveries, more whispers. Couldn't tell what was real anymore. Alcohol and guilt blended into one long nightmare. His coworkers noticed, smelled the vodka sweat, saw him flinch at nothing, heard him muttering about numbers. They suggested time off. He refused, drank more. The final gift was a new urn, identical to the one he'd trashed, delivered to his office with a note. "In case you want to throw me away again, I'll always come back. Love, Lily." The day it arrived, I got the call. It was him, hammered beyond words. The gifts, voices. "Is it you?" His voice was shaking. I responded with a simple, "You're hammered, Dad. I'm sorry. About Lily. Everything. Just make it stop." I hung up, sent one last package, gray fireplace ash. The note, "Every time you throw me away, I multiply. How many times will you unalive me?" He checked himself into a psychiatric hold the next day, told them his dead daughter was haunting him through numbers and voices. Classic alcohol-induced psychosis mixed with guilt, they said. I moved in with my aunt. Sometimes I'd visit just to see how bad he'd gotten, and one morning, at 8 a.m., there was a knock at the door. It was the police getting ready to take me into questioning, because in his psychotic break, my dad went to the police saying he had unalived Lily, and that I helped to cover it up. The officers stood there with their badges out, their faces serious but not unkind. One was older with gray at his temples, the other younger with nervous energy that made him shift his weight between feet. "We need you to come with us to answer some questions about your sister's death," the older one said. His voice was gentle, like he was talking to a scared animal. I grabbed my jacket from the hook by the door, my hands steady even though my heart was racing. Aunt stood behind me in her bathrobe, coffee mug frozen halfway to her lips. "What's this about?" she asked, but I was already walking toward the police car. The ride to the station took 20 minutes. I counted the streetlights we passed, watched people starting their normal days. A woman walked her dog. A man carried coffee and a briefcase. Normal people living normal lives while I sat in the back of a police car because my father had finally snapped completely. The interrogation room was exactly like the ones on TV. Gray walls, metal table, uncomfortable chairs. They brought me water in a paper cup and told me to wait. I sat there for 40 minutes before anyone came in. When they finally arrived, there were 3 of them. The 2 officers from earlier and a woman in a suit who introduced herself as Detective Martinez. She had kind eyes, but I knew better than to trust that. "Your father came to us yesterday," she started, setting a folder on the table between us. "He made some very serious allegations." I took a sip of water, letting the silence stretch. "He claims that your sister didn't take her own life, that he was responsible for her death, and that you helped cover it up." The water tasted like metal. I set the cup down carefully. "He's been drinking heavily since Lily died," I said. "He checked himself into psychiatric care yesterday because he was having delusions." Detective Martinez opened the folder. Inside were photos of the packages I'd sent, printouts of receipts, even screenshots of his phone showing the time 1717. "He also claims you've been harassing him, sending packages, manipulating him psychologically." I looked at the evidence spread across the table. My fingerprints weren't on any of it. I'd been careful about that. "I've been living with my aunt since he went to the hospital," I said. "You can check with her." "We will," the younger officer said. He seemed eager to play bad cop. "But first, we need to hear your version of what happened the night your sister died." So I told them how Dad had been drinking since noon, how I'd spilled juice on his papers, how Lily had gotten between us like she always did, how he'd thrown her against the wall wall, how I'd found her the next morning with the note beside the tub. Do you still have the note? Detective Martinez asked. Dad threw it away with her ashes, I said, and my voice cracked for the first time. Put them in the kitchen trash with coffee grounds. The younger officer made a disgusted sound. Even the older one looked uncomfortable. Tell us more about your father's drinking, Detective Martinez said. I told them everything. The years of abuse, how it got worse after Mom left, how Lily took the worst of it to protect me. I showed them old photos on my phone of bruises on my arms, ones Lily had made me take, just in case. Why didn't you report this before? The younger officer asked. Lily made me promise not to. She said it would make things worse, that we just had to wait until I turned 18 and we could leave together. They kept me there for 12 hours. The same questions over and over, asked different ways. They brought in lunch, a sad sandwich and chips, and dinner from a Chinese place. My aunt called 4 times, but they wouldn't let me answer. Around hour 8, Detective Martinez left and came back with a stack of papers. Your father's given us a very detailed confession, she said. He claims you forged the sewer slide note, that you've been planning this since before your sister died. I stared at the papers. Dad's handwriting, shaky from withdrawal but still recognizable. He says you were jealous of Lily, that you resented how much attention she got. The attention was him beating her, I said flatly. He claims the bruises were self-inflicted, that Lily had mental health issues and you encouraged her self-harm. My hands clenched under the table. This was worse than I'd expected. Even in his psychosis, Dad was still trying to destroy everything. He also provided us with these, Detective Martinez continued, pulling out a new set of photos. They were of me following him to the grocery store, taken from security cameras. He says you've been stalking him for weeks. I looked at the grainy images, me in the cereal aisle, me by the checkout, all from my $17 receipt scheme. I shop at the same store, I said. It's 3 blocks from my aunt's house. Every day? At the exact same time your father shops? I didn't answer. Anything I said would make it worse. The younger officer leaned forward. Here's what I think happened. Your sister was troubled. Maybe she was hurting herself. Maybe your dad was too strict. Maybe both. But when she died, you saw an opportunity. You could get rid of your father and have all the sympathy for yourself. That's not. You started small, he continued. Sending packages, playing recordings, classic gaslighting techniques. You wanted to drive him crazy, make him confess to something he didn't do. He threw her ashes in the trash, I said again. So you claim. But we only have your word for that. They brought in a laptop around hour 10, showing me more evidence. Recordings pulled from Dad's phone of his own voice saying horrible things about Lily. The metadata showed they'd been played through speakers, not said live. I was documenting his abuse, I said, in case I ever needed proof. Or you were collecting ammunition for your harassment campaign, the younger officer countered. Detective Martinez pulled out another paper. Your father's medical records show he's been suffering from severe anxiety and paranoia for the past month. His blood alcohol content when he checked himself in was 0.28. That's severe intoxication. He's been an alcoholic my whole life, I said, which would make him an easy target for manipulation, she replied. Hour 11 brought new revelations. Dad had apparently kept detailed notes about every incident, every package, every occurrence of the number 17, every time he heard voices. He'd even hired a private investigator who'd caught me buying a blue prom dress 2 weeks ago. You want to explain that? The younger officer asked, showing me the receipt. I stayed silent. How could I explain that I'd wanted to hurt him the way he'd hurt us? That every package was a tiny revenge for years of pain? Your aunt is here, Detective Martinez said finally. She's agreed to maintain custody while we investigate further, but there are conditions. She listed them while I half listened. No contact with Dad, no leaving the county, weekly check-ins with a social worker. I nodded at all the right places. When they finally released me, it was past midnight. Aunt waited in the lobby, her face a mix of worry and something else. Doubt, maybe, or fear. The ride home was silent. She didn't ask what happened, didn't offer comfort. When we got to her house, she paused before unlocking the door. I need to know, she said quietly. Did you do what he says? He threw Lily's ashes in the trash, I said for what felt like the 100th time. She nodded, but I could see she wasn't convinced. Not entirely. I went to my room, Lily's old room when she'd stayed here during the worst fights. Her chemistry textbooks were still on the shelf, her periodic table poster still on the wall. I lay on the bed and stared at the ceiling, trying to process what had just happened. Dad had turned my own plan against me. Every move I'd made to destroy him had become evidence of my guilt. The recordings, the packages, the 17 receipts, all proof that I was the disturbed one, the manipulator. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Bail hearing tomorrow. See you soon, sweetheart. Dad. I deleted it immediately, but my hands were shaking. How did he get a phone in psychiatric hold? How did he know my number? Another buzz. This time from my friend Sarah from chemistry class. OMG, are you okay? Cops came to school asking about you. Then another from Jake, my lab partner. They wanted to know about that project on psychological manipulation. I didn't tell them anything, but Mrs. Peterson gave them your research notes. My stomach dropped. The project had been about gaslighting techniques in abusive relationships. I'd researched extensively, bookmarked articles about driving people to question reality. It had been therapeutic, a way to understand what Dad did to us. Now it would look like a blueprint. I spent the rest of the night awake, listening to every car that passed, every footstep outside. Aunt had locked her bedroom door. I heard the click from down the hall. When morning came, I was exhausted but wired. Aunt made breakfast in silence, sliding eggs and toast across the table without meeting my eyes. The social worker will be here at 10, she said finally. You need to cooperate fully. I know. And your father. She paused, choosing her words carefully. His lawyer called. He made bail. The fork slipped from my hand. How? He was on psychiatric hold. Voluntary admission. He checked himself out against medical advice. His lawyer argued he was seeking help for alcohol-induced delusions and wasn't a flight risk, but he confessed to killing Lily while intoxicated and experiencing what his lawyer calls persecution delusions. They're claiming you drove him to it. I pushed the eggs around my plate, no longer hungry. Dad was out, free, and he'd already started his game with the text last night. The social worker arrived exactly at 10. Ms. Chen, a woman in her 30s with a gentle voice but sharp eyes. She asked about school, about my grades, about my plans for college. Safe questions at first. Then, tell me about your relationship with your sister. So I did. How Lily had been my protector, my shield. How she'd taken every blow meant for me. How she'd made me promise to be strong, to survive. And your father? He's an alcoholic who abused us for years, I said simply. The police report mentions you've been sending him packages, playing recordings. Can you explain that? I looked her straight in the eye. I wanted him to remember what he did, to feel guilty. And the number 17? Lily's age when she died. I thought if he saw it enough, he'd understand what he took from the world. She wrote everything down in careful handwriting. Your father father claims you were jealous of Lily, that you resented her. I loved her more than anything, I said, and for once my voice was steady. She was the only good thing in that house. Ms. Chen asked about the chemistry project, about my research into psychological manipulation. I explained about trying to understand abuse patterns, about wanting to recognize the signs. But you use that knowledge against your father, she said, not a question. I used it to make him face what he did. Some would call that revenge. Some would call it justice. She left after an hour with promises to check in next week. I watched her car disappear down the street and wondered what she'd write in her report. The afternoon brought more texts from unknown numbers, pictures of our old house, of Lily's grave, of the liquor store Dad frequented. No words, just images that made my skin crawl. I showed them to Aunt, but she just looked tired. Maybe you should stay off your phone for a while, she suggested. I wanted to scream that this was exactly what Dad did. Make you question yourself, make others doubt you, isolate you until you had nowhere to turn. But I just nodded and put the phone away. That night, I heard a car idling outside. The engine rumbled for 20 minutes before driving away. I peeked through the curtains but couldn't see anything in the darkness. The next morning, there was an envelope under the door. Aunt found it when she went to get the newspaper. My name was written on the front in Dad's handwriting. Should we call the police? She asked, holding it like it might explode. They'll say there's no proof it's from him, I said, taking it from her. Inside was a single sheet of paper, an apology letter, the kind they make you write in AA, all about taking responsibility and making amends. But between the lines of regret were subtle digs. How sorry he was for failing to see the signs of my troubles, how he should have gotten me help sooner, how he forgave me for what I'd done to our family. It was masterful. Anyone reading it would see a broken father trying to reconcile. Only I could read the threats underneath. School called that afternoon. The principal's voice was carefully neutral as she explained that given the ongoing investigation, they felt it best if I took some time off. Just until things are resolved, she assured me. Your teachers will send work home. Suspended without calling it a suspension. I wondered if Dad's lawyer had called them, or if they decided on their own that I was too much of a liability. The isolation was suffocating. Aunt went to work, leaving me alone in the house with nothing but my thoughts, and the occasional car driving by too slowly. I tried to do schoolwork but couldn't focus. Tried to sleep but kept jolting awake at every sound. On the third day, Jake texted from a different number. Using my mom's phone, cops took mine. They're really pushing the jealousy angle, asking if you ever talked about Lily negatively. I stared at the message, remembering all the times I'd vented to him about feeling guilty that Lily protected me, how I'd said I wished I could take her place, that she deserved better. Out of context, it would sound terrible. Also, his next message read, someone told them about the time you looked up how to drive someone crazy on the school computer for the project, remember? But they're making it sound planned. Every innocent action was being twisted. Every moment of research, every expression of grief or guilt, all becoming evidence of some master plan I'd never had. The irony wasn't lost on me. I'd wanted to drive Dad crazy with guilt, but he was doing the same to me with lies. That night, another envelope appeared. This time, Aunt was still awake when we heard the footsteps on the porch. She grabbed a baseball bat from the closet, but by the time she opened the door, whoever it was had vanished. The letter was longer this time. More apologies, more subtle accusations, but at the end, a new addition. I've been in touch with your mother. She's worried about you too. Maybe it's time for a family reunion to heal these wounds. My blood went cold. Mom had left when I was 8. No forwarding address, no contact for 7 years. How had he found her? We need to call the police, Aunt said after reading it, but when they came, they seemed more annoyed than concerned. The letters weren't explicitly threatening. The footsteps could have been anyone. Without proof it was Dad. Their hands were tied. Maybe install a security camera, one officer suggested. Document everything. After they left, Aunt turned to me with an expression I'd never seen before. Your mother, she said slowly. Would she really take his side? I don't know, I admitted. I barely remember her anymore, but I remembered enough. How she'd flinch when Dad came home, how she'd hidden bruises with makeup, how she'd left in the middle of the night, leaving only a note that said, I'm sorry. If Dad had found her, if he'd convinced her I was dangerous, would she believe him? Would the woman who'd abandoned us to save herself now help destroy the daughter she'd left behind? The next few days blurred together. More letters, always just vague enough to avoid police action. More texts from unknown numbers. Jake reported that the police had interviewed half our chemistry class. Sarah said rumors were flying about why I wasn't at school. Then, exactly 1 week after the interrogation, everything escalated. I woke to Aunt screaming. I scrambled out of bed, my heart hammering as Aunt's screams echoed through the house. Racing down the hallway, I found her standing in the kitchen, staring at the refrigerator. Every surface was covered in photographs, dozens of them, all of Lily. School pictures, candids, even ones from her last birthday party. Each photo had been defaced with red marker. Jealous, scrawled across her face. Liar, over her smile. Murderer, covering her eyes. Aunt's hands shook as she pointed to the kitchen window. The lock had been jimmied open. Someone had been in the house while we slept. The police arrived within minutes, but their response was predictable. No fingerprints on the photos, no witnesses. The security camera Aunt had installed showed nothing. Someone had spray painted the lens black during the night. Change your locks, the older officer suggested. Maybe stay somewhere else for a few days. But where could we go? Aunt's face had gone pale, and I could see the doubt creeping deeper into her eyes. She was starting to wonder if maybe I'd done this myself, if maybe Dad's stories about my instability weren't completely fabricated. That afternoon, Ms. Chen made an unscheduled visit. She sat across from me in the living room while Aunt hovered in the doorway, arms crossed. Your father's lawyer contacted our office, Ms. Chen said carefully. He's provided some concerning information. She pulled out a folder, revealing printed emails. My stomach dropped as I recognized them. Messages I'd sent to Lily months before she died. Taken out of context, they looked damning. I wish you didn't have to protect me all the time. One read. Sometimes I think we'd both be better off if things were different. Another. I hate that he compares you to Mom. I hate that you look like her. It's not fair. These were private, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. How did he even get them? Your father says Lily showed them to him, that she was worried about your mental state. The lie was so perfectly crafted. Lily would never have shown Dad anything, but she wasn't here to deny it. And the emails, twisted just right, painted a picture of a resentful younger sister. Ms. Chen continued pulling out papers. Screenshots of my search history from months ago. Sibling rivalry psychology. Dealing with jealousy. How to cope when parents play favorites. I was trying to understand our family dynamics, I explained. Trying to process everything. Your father suggests you were building a case against your sister, that you resented her role as protector. The room felt like it was spinning. Every innocent search, every moment of trying to to understand our dysfunction, was being weaponized against me. That evening, Aunt barely spoke during dinner. She'd installed new locks, but I could tell she no longer felt safe with me in the house. When her phone rang, she took it in her bedroom, closing the door. I heard her voice through the walls, low and worried. An hour later, she emerged with an expression I'd never seen before. "That was your mother," she said quietly. My blood went cold. "Mom called you? Your father found her, told her what's been happening. She's concerned." Concerned? The word tasted bitter. "She abandoned us 7 years ago. She says your father told her things about your behavior before she left, things she's remembering now." "What things?" But I already knew. Dad was planting false memories, making Mom question everything she thought she knew about her daughters. Aunt sat down heavily. "She says you used to have tantrums, that you'd hurt yourself and blame Lily, that she left partly because she was afraid of what you might do." None of it was true. I'd been 8 years old, terrified and trying to survive. But memory was malleable, especially when manipulated by someone who knew exactly which buttons to push. "You don't believe her," I said. It wasn't a question. Aunt's silence was answer enough. The next morning, I woke to find my laptop missing. Aunt claimed she didn't know where it was, but I saw the guilt in her eyes. She'd given it to someone, the police, Ms. Chen, maybe even Dad's lawyer. "I need to protect myself too," she said when I confronted her. "If there's nothing incriminating on it, you'll get it back." But I knew what they'd find. More searches about psychological manipulation. The draft of a story I'd written about a girl who lost her sister. Taken out of context, it would look like a confession. Jake texted again that afternoon. "Police took our whole chemistry project. They're focusing on the section about gaslighting. Someone told them you were obsessed with it." I wanted to scream. The project had been about recognizing and escaping abuse. Now it was being used as evidence that I was the abuser. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every creak of the house made me jump. Around 3 a.m., I heard it. The distinctive sound of our old garage door opening. The one Dad had never fixed, that squeaked in a specific pattern. I crept to the window and saw him, Dad, swaying slightly, placing something in Aunt's car. He was gone before I could even think about calling for help. In the morning, I tried to warn Aunt, but she was already leaving for work. "I'm late," she said, grabbing her keys. "We'll talk tonight." I watched from the window as she drove away, dread pooling in my stomach. 20 minutes later, she called, her voice shaking. "The police just pulled me over. They found Lily's jewelry in my car, the pieces that went missing after she died." My heart stopped. Dad had kept Lily's jewelry all this time, just waiting for the perfect moment to use it. "I told them I didn't put it there," Aunt continued. "But they want to know why it was hidden under my seat. They think you put it there, that you've been hiding evidence." The trap was perfectly sprung. If I said Dad planted it, I'd sound paranoid. If I said nothing, it looked like guilt. I spent the day alone, watching cars pass by the window. Each one could be Dad. Each one could be another piece of his plan falling into place. Ms. Chen arrived in the late afternoon with 2 police officers. "We need to search your room," she said gently. "This is just procedure." I sat on the couch while they went through everything. They found what Dad wanted them to find. Lily's diary, hidden in my closet. The one I'd never seen before, because it wasn't real. The handwriting was close enough to pass, especially since they had no original to compare it to. The entries were masterful, documenting my supposed jealousy, my violent outbursts, my threats. "I'm scared of what she might do," one entry read. "She says she wishes I was dead sometimes. Dad doesn't believe me." Detective Martinez read passages aloud, her face grave. Each word was a nail in my coffin, and I could almost hear Dad's satisfaction from wherever he was watching. "This isn't real," I said, but my voice sounded hollow even to me. "Lily never kept a diary." "How would you know," Detective Martinez asked, "if you never saw it?" The logic was circular, impossible to refute. I was trapped in Dad's web, and every struggle only tangled me further. They didn't arrest me that day, but I could feel it coming. The case was building, piece by manufactured piece. Dad had turned my own plan against me with surgical precision. That night, Aunt made dinner in silence. Halfway through, she set down her fork. "I think," she said slowly, "it might be best if you stayed somewhere else for a while." "Where?" I asked. "I have nowhere to go. Your mother. She's offered to let you stay with her." The betrayal hit like a physical blow. Mom, who'd abandoned us to Dad's rage, was now offering to take me in, no doubt to help Dad complete his frame job. "I won't go," I said. "It's not a request," Aunt replied. "I'm sorry, but I can't. I need to feel safe in my own home." I packed that night, throwing clothes into a bag while tears burned my eyes. Lily's chemistry textbook stared at me from the shelf, and I grabbed one on impulse, something to remember her by. The next morning, a woman I barely recognized stood at the door. Mom looked older, worn down by whatever life she'd built after leaving us. Her eyes, Lily's eyes, wouldn't meet mine. "Hello, sweetheart," she said, and the endearment sounded foreign on her lips. The drive to her apartment took 2 hours. 2 hours of silence broken only by her occasional attempts at conversation. "Your father says you've been struggling," she finally said. "That losing Lily broke something in you." "Dad broke us long before Lily died," I replied. She flinched but didn't respond. Her apartment was small but clean, nothing like the chaos of our old house. She showed me to a spare room that smelled like fresh paint. "We'll get through this," she said. "Your father, he wants to help. He's been going to therapy, getting better." The lie was so smooth I almost believed she believed it. But then I saw it, a check on her kitchen counter. Dad's signature, a large amount. He was paying her. That night, I lay awake planning. I needed evidence, real evidence, that Dad was orchestrating all of this. But how could I get it when everyone was watching me, waiting for me to crack? The answer came at 2 a.m. when Mom's phone buzzed. She'd left it on the kitchen counter, and through my cracked door, I could see the screen light up. A text from Dad. "Is she there? Keep her calm. Tomorrow's important." I slipped out of bed, my heart racing. Mom was sleeping, her door closed. I picked up her phone, trying her birthday as the passcode. It worked. The text thread with Dad went back days. My hands shook as I read their conspiracy laid bare. "Plant the diary tonight. Make sure the handwriting is close enough. She's searching the jewelry now. Put it in the sister's car tomorrow. The mother is starting to doubt. Send her the fake emails." I screenshotted everything, sending them to my own phone. But as soon as I hit send, Mom's bedroom door opened. "What are you doing?" Her voice was sharp, afraid. "You're helping him frame me," I said, holding up the phone. "You're taking money to destroy your own daughter." Her face crumpled. "You don't understand. He said if I didn't help, he'd come after me too. He knows where I live now. He said he'd tell everyone what I did." "What you did?" She sank into a kitchen chair. "The night I left, I took money from his work. I was desperate. I needed to get away. He's held it over me all these years." The final piece clicked into place. Dad hadn't just found Mom. He'd been keeping tabs on her all along, waiting for the perfect moment to activate his leverage. "We can go to the police together," I said. "Show them these texts." But she was already shaking her head. "He'll destroy us both. You don't know what what he's capable of. I know exactly what he's capable of, I said. He called Lily. No, Mom whispered. Lily called herself. The note was real, but he drove her to it. Every beating, every cruel word. He murdered her slowly, over years. Mom started crying then, ugly sobs that shook her whole body. I should have taken you both. I should have been stronger. Help me now, I pleaded. Help me stop him. For a moment, I thought she might. Her hand reached for mine across the table. Then her phone rang. Dad's name on the screen. She answered on speaker, her voice trembling. Hello? I know she has your phone. Dad's voice was calm, cold. I know she's seen the messages. Mom's eyes went wide with fear. Here's what's going to happen, he continued. Tomorrow, you're going to take her to the police station. You're going to tell them you caught her trying to delete evidence from your phone. You're going to say she confessed to you about forging Lily's sewer slide note. I won't, I started, but Mom grabbed my hand, squeezing hard. Or, Dad said, I call your employer tomorrow. Tell them about the money you stole 7 years ago. I have the receipts, the security footage. You'll lose everything. The line went dead. Mom and I sat in silence, both trapped by the same monster in different ways. Run, she whispered finally. Take my car and run. That'll just make me look guilty. You look guilty anyway, she said. At least if you run, you're free. But I thought of Lily, of her sacrifice, of every blow she'd taken for me. Running would mean Dad won. It would mean her death was for nothing. No, I said. I'm going to fight him. Mom looked at me with something like awe. You're stronger than I was. Lily made me strong, I replied. The next morning came too soon. Mom made breakfast with shaking hands while I reviewed the screenshots I'd taken. They were damning, but would anyone believe they were real? Dad could claim I'd faked them, that I'd stolen Mom's phone and created the conversation myself. I needed more. I needed Dad to confess, on tape, where he couldn't deny it. I won't take you to the police, Mom said suddenly. I'll face whatever he does to me. He'll destroy you, I said. Maybe that's what I deserve, she replied, for leaving you both with him. Before I could respond, there was a knock at the door. Through the peephole, I saw Detective Martinez with 2 uniformed officers. We know you're in there, Martinez called. We just want to talk. Mom looked at me, panic in her eyes. The back door, she whispered, but I was tired of running, tired of being hunted. I opened the door. Your mother called us, Martinez said, looking confused. Said you'd stolen her phone, that you'd confessed to forging evidence. I turned to Mom, who shook her head. I didn't call anyone. Martinez held up her phone, showing a recorded call from Mom's number. Her voice clearly distressed, saying exactly what Dad had scripted. That's not me, Mom said. I never made that call. But the evidence was there. Dad must have recorded her voice during their conversations, spliced together what he needed. Technology made frame jobs so much easier than they used to be. We're going to need you both to come with us, Martinez said. As they let us out, I saw him, Dad, sitting in his car across the street, watching. He raised his coffee cup in a mock toast, his smile visible even from a distance. At the station, they separated us immediately. I was back in the same interrogation room, the same gray walls closing in. But this time, I had a plan. I want to make a deal, I said when Martinez entered. I'll tell you everything, but I need immunity for my mother. She's being blackmailed. Martinez raised an eyebrow. That's not how this works. Then I want a lawyer, I said. And I want to talk to my father, alone. It took 3 hours of negotiation, but eventually they agreed. Dad entered the interrogation room with his lawyer, looking every bit the concerned parent. Sweetheart, he said, reaching for my hand. I let him take it, fighting not to recoil. This has gone too far. Just tell the truth and we can get you help. His lawyer started to speak, but I cut him off. Can we have a moment alone, father to daughter? The lawyer looked uncertain, but Dad nodded. It's fine. I just want to help my little girl. When we were alone, Dad's mask dropped slightly. You thought you were so clever, he said, but you're just like your sister, weak. I pulled out my phone, making sure it was recording. Tell me about Lily, I said. He laughed. What's to tell? She was pathetic, always trying to protect you, always getting in my way. Is that why you hurt her? I disciplined her, he corrected. Someone had to, after your mother ran off. Someone had to teach her respect. And the night she died, his eyes glittered with something dark. She made her choice, took the coward's way out, just like I always knew she would. You threw her against the wall, I pressed, called her names. She deserved it, he snarled, looking at me with those eyes, just like your mother, judging me, both of them, always judging. And her ashes? He leaned back, smiling now. Trash belongs in the trash. She was nothing, is nothing, just like you'll be nothing when I'm done with you. Why frame me? I asked. Why go through all this? Because you tried to break me, he said, his voice rising. The packages, the recordings, the 17 everywhere. You thought you could drive me crazy? I'll show you crazy. I'll take everything from you, just like you tried to take everything from me. I just wanted you to feel guilty, I said quietly. Guilty? He laughed, harsh and bitter. For what? For surviving? For outlasting weak people who couldn't handle reality? Your sister was weak, your mother was weak, and you're weak too. Lily wasn't weak, I said. She was the strongest person I knew. She was a punching bag, Dad spat. That's all she was good for. Taking hits meant for worthless little brats who should have been drowned at birth. My phone was still recording, catching every word, but I needed more. I needed him to admit to the frame-up. How did you do it? I asked. The diary, the jewelry, Mom? Pride flickered across his face. He'd always loved showing off how smart he was. Your mother was easy. 7 years of guilt and a little blackmail. The diary took planning. Had to study Lily's handwriting for weeks. But the best part? The jewelry? I've had that since the day she died. Kept it just in case I needed. Insurance. And the emails? Fake, he admitted. Well, edited. Amazing what you can do with technology these days. Change a word here, delete a line there, and suddenly you're a jealous, unstable little girl who hated her sister. But I loved her, I said. And for the first time, tears burned my eyes. Love, Dad scoffed. Love is weakness. I tried to love your mother, and she ran. Tried to love Lily, and she called herself. Love gets you nothing but pain. Is that why you called her? The words slipped out before I could stop them. Dad went very still. What did you say? You called her, I repeated. Maybe not with your hands, but with your words. Your fists. Every day you culled a piece of her until there was nothing left. His face twisted with rage. She called herself. Left a note and everything. Dramatic little attention seeker. Just like, he stopped. But I knew what he'd been about to say. Just like your mother. You kept her ashes for 2 months, I said. Then threw them away like garbage. Because that's all she was. He slammed his hand on the table. Garbage. A reminder of failure. Every time I looked at that urn, I saw your mother's face. Her weakness. Her betrayal. So you threw away your daughter. I threw away a disappointment, he corrected. Just like I'm throwing you away now. By the time I'm done, everyone will know what you really are. A sick, jealous little girl who couldn't stand being in her sister's shadow. Except I have this recording, I said, holding up my phone. His face went white, then red. He lunged across the table, grabbing for the phone. I jerked back, but his hands caught my wrist, twisting hard. The door burst open. Detective Martinez and 2 officers rushed in, pulling Dad off me. "That's assault," Martinez said, and we heard everything. They'd been listening. The room had been wired the whole time. My phone was just backup. Dad struggled against the officers, his mask completely gone now. "She set me up. She manipulated me. Can't you see what she's doing?" "What I see," Martinez said, "is a father who just confessed to framing his daughter for crimes she didn't commit." They dragged him out, still screaming about manipulation and lies. His lawyer stood in the hallway looking shell-shocked. Martinez sat down across from me. "That was dangerous," she said, "but brave." "I learned from Lily," I replied. "She always put herself between me and danger." "Your mother corroborated everything," Martinez continued. "She's been cooperating fully. Showed us all the texts, the blackmail, everything." Relief flooded through me. Mom had found her courage after all. "What happens now?" I asked. "Now we build a case against your father for the false reports, the breaking and entering, the planted evidence, the assault we just witnessed. He's looking at serious time. And Lily's death?" Martinez's face softened. "We'll review everything in light of what we've learned, but without physical evidence." I understood. He'd driven Lily to her death, but proving it legally would be almost impossible. I gave my statement again, this time with the truth on my side. Mom was there, holding my hand, both of us finally free from Dad's shadow. The next weeks were a blur of legal proceedings. Dad's carefully constructed frame job fell apart piece by piece. The fake diary was exposed through handwriting analysis. The edited emails were traced back to his computer. His break-ins were documented through doorbell cameras from neighbors we hadn't even known were recording. Jake and Sarah testified about our chemistry project, explaining it was about recognizing abuse, not perpetrating it. Mrs. Peterson provided the full context of our research. Even Dad's coworkers came forward, admitting they'd noticed his drinking getting worse, his paranoia increasing. The 17 receipts, the packages, the recordings. Yes, I'd done all of that. But the court recognized it as the desperate act of a grieving teenager, not the calculated manipulation Dad had tried to paint it as. Dad's lawyer tried to argue mental illness, that the alcohol had made him delusional. But the prosecutor had his confession on tape, lucid and calculated. He'd known exactly what he was doing. The day of his sentencing, I sat in the courtroom between Mom and Aunt. We were still rebuilding our relationships, trust growing slowly but surely. Dad looked smaller somehow, diminished without his ability to terrorize us. When the judge read the verdict, guilty on all counts, he didn't react, just stared at me with those cold eyes. 5 years for the false reports and evidence tampering, 2 for breaking and entering, 1 for assault. 8 years total, with possibility of parole in 5. It wasn't enough for what he'd done to Lily, but it was something. As they led him away, he turned back one last time. "She was weak," he called out, "just like you." "No," I said, standing up. "She was strong enough to protect me, and I was strong enough to stop you." The courtroom doors closed behind Dad with a finality that should have felt like victory. Instead, I just felt empty. Mom squeezed my hand as we walked out into the afternoon sun, but neither of us spoke. Aunt trailed behind, her heels clicking on the courthouse steps. The ride back to Mom's apartment was silent. I watched the city pass by, normal people living normal lives, and wondered if I'd ever feel normal again. 8 years wasn't enough for what he'd done to Lily, but it was 8 years we'd be free from him. Mom's apartment felt different now. The fear that had permeated every corner was gone, replaced by something else. Uncertainty, maybe. We'd been united against Dad, but now that he was gone, we had to figure out what came next. "I'll make tea," Mom said, disappearing into the kitchen. Her default response to everything: make tea, avoid the hard conversations. Aunt sat across from me on the couch, studying my face. "How are you feeling?" I shrugged. The truth was too complicated. Relief mixed with grief, mixed with anger that still burned hot in my chest. My phone buzzed. Jake, texting from his regular number now that the investigation was over. "Saw the news. You okay?" News. Of course it had made the local news. Daughter's revenge plot exposed as father's frame job. The headlines practically wrote themselves. I didn't respond. What was there to say? Mom returned with 3 mugs, setting them on the coffee table with shaking hands. "I've been thinking," she started, then stopped, started again. "About what happens now. I go back to school," I said. "Graduate, move on." But even as I said it, I knew it wasn't that simple. The whole school knew what had happened. The rumors, the investigation, the truth that was somehow worse than the lies. "Actually," Aunt said carefully, "the principal called. They're concerned about reintegration. Suggested maybe finishing the year with online classes." Of course they did. I was the girl who'd driven her father crazy. Even if it turned out he'd deserved it. Parents would complain, students would whisper, better to keep me away until the scandal died down. "Fine," I said, because fighting it would take energy I didn't have. Mom shifted uncomfortably. "And living arrangements. She'll stay with me," Aunt said quickly, "if that's what she wants." I looked between them, these 2 women who'd failed to protect us when it mattered but were trying now. Mom, who'd run and left us behind. Aunt, who'd doubted me when Dad's lies seemed convincing. "I need some air," I said, standing abruptly. Outside, the November cold bit at my skin. I walked without direction, just needing to move. My feet carried me to the cemetery without conscious thought. Lily's headstone was simple, just her name, dates, and beloved daughter and sister. Dad had picked it out in his grief performance phase, before he'd thrown her ashes away. I sat on the cold ground, pulling my knees to my chest. "We got him," I whispered to the stone. "He's going away for 8 years." The wind rustled through the trees, and for a moment I could almost imagine it was her response. A car door slammed nearby. I turned to see Mom approaching hesitantly, a small urn in her hands. "I went back to the house," she said quietly. "After they arrested him, found these in the garage." My heart stopped. "Is that—" "He kept them after all, hidden behind paint cans. I had them verified. It's her." I stared at the urn, identical to the one he'd claimed to throw away. All this time he'd kept her ashes like a trophy while sending me empty packages to torment me. Mom knelt beside me, setting the urn gently on the grave. I thought, maybe we could scatter them somewhere she'd have liked. The beach maybe. She always loved the ocean. "She never saw the ocean," I said flatly. "We never went anywhere." Mom flinched. Another reminder of all the things she'd missed, all the ways she'd failed us. "Then maybe somewhere new," she suggested. "Somewhere that could have been hers if she'd lived, if Dad hadn't destroyed her piece by piece, if Mom had stayed, if I'd been stronger." So many ifs. My phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but habit made me accept the call. "This is Victoria Chen from the district attorney's office," a crisp voice said. "I'm calling about your victim impact statement. We're recommending you speak at your father's parole hearings." "He just got sentenced today," I said. "I understand, but we like to plan ahead. First hearing will be in 5 years, assuming good behavior. 5 years, when I'd be 20. Lily would have been 22, maybe graduated from college, maybe married, maybe be happy. I'll think about it, I said, and hung up. Mom was watching me with those eyes that looked too much like Lily's. Parole hearing? In 5 years. I stood, brushing dirt off my jeans. He'll probably get out early. Good behavior and all that. We'll be ready, Mom said firmly. Both of us. We won't let him hurt anyone else. But I was already walking away, back toward the parking lot. I didn't want to think about 5 years from now. I could barely think about tomorrow. Back at Mom's apartment, Aunt was packing up her things. I should get home, she said, but call if you need anything. After she left, Mom and I sat in awkward silence. 7 years of absence stretched between us. Impossible to bridge in a few weeks of crisis. I kept your room, she said suddenly. At my apartment. Never changed anything. I don't have a room at your apartment, I said. You left when I was 8. I mean, I set one up for you. In every place I've lived. She twisted her hands in her lap. I always hoped. Someday you'd come back. Someday you'd save us. Someday I'd be brave enough, she finished quietly. My phone buzzed. Sarah this time. Everyone's asking when you're coming back to school. I showed Mom the text. She read it, then looked at me. What do you want to do? What I wanted was to rewind time. To save Lily. To have a normal family. To not be the girl who'd tortured her father with guilt until he snapped and tried to frame her for murder. I want to graduate, I said finally. I want to go to college far away from here. I want to study chemistry like Lily would have. Mom nodded slowly. We'll make it happen. Online classes for now, then. No. The word came out sharper than intended. I'm going back to school. Monday. I'm not hiding. Are you sure? After everything? Lily never hid, I said. She faced him every day. I can face some gossip. That weekend passed in a blur of preparation. Mom helped me gather my school supplies, most of which were still evidence in Dad's case. We bought new notebooks, new pens, a new backpack to replace the one he'd planted Lily's jewelry in. Sunday night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Dad's face in the courtroom, heard his voice calling Lily weak, felt the weight of what came next. Monday morning arrived too soon. Mom drove me to school, her knuckles white on the steering wheel. You don't have to do this, she said for the 10th time. Yes, I do. The parking lot was full of familiar cars. Through the windshield, I could see students clustering in groups, probably sharing the latest gossip about my family's drama. I'll be right here at 3:15, Mom promised. I grabbed my backpack and stepped out before I could lose my nerve. The November air was crisp, carrying the scent of fallen leaves and cafeteria food. The walk to the front doors felt like miles. Conversations stopped as I passed. Eyes tracked my movement. Someone whispered, "That's her." Inside was worse. The hallway seemed to stretch forever, lined with staring faces. I kept my eyes forward, focusing on my locker at the end of the hall. Jake appeared at my side, falling into step beside me. Hey, fair warning, everyone knows. About the trial, the recordings, everything. I figured. We reached my locker. Someone had taped a printout of a news article to it. Local teen's elaborate revenge scheme exposed. I tore it down, crumpling it into a ball. For what it's worth, Jake said, I think what you did was brilliant. He deserved worse. Before I could respond, the principal's voice crackled over the intercom. Would our student body please report to the auditorium for a special assembly? Jake and I exchanged glances. Special assemblies were never good. The auditorium filled quickly, whispers echoing off the walls. I found a seat in the back, trying to become invisible. It didn't work. People turned to stare, some with sympathy, others with the hungry look of those who fed on drama. Principal Morrison took the stage, her expression grave. As many of you know, our school community has been touched by tragedy. We've lost a bright student, and another has been through an ordeal that no young person should face. My face burned. This was about me, about us. We want to remind everyone that gossip and speculation help no one. If you're struggling with difficult feelings about recent events, our counselors are available. She went on about resources and support, but I'd stopped listening. This assembly was damage control, trying to contain the scandal that had touched their precious school's reputation. When it finally ended, I bolted for the door, but Ms. Peterson intercepted me in the hallway. I wanted to apologize, she said quietly, for giving the police your research. I didn't realize. It's fine, I said, though it wasn't. Your project on psychological manipulation was exceptional, she continued. You showed real insight into abuse dynamics. Have you thought about pursuing psychology in college? I almost laughed. After everything, the last thing I wanted was to spend more time analyzing twisted family dynamics. I'm thinking chemistry, I said, like Lily wanted. Ms. Peterson smiled sadly. She would have been brilliant at it. You will be too. The rest of the day was a gauntlet of stares and whispers. Some teachers tried too hard to act normal. Others watched me like I might snap at any moment. Lunch was unbearable. I ate in the chemistry lab, Jake keeping me company while pretending to study. It'll get better, he said. People will move on to the next drama. But I wasn't sure I wanted them to move on. Moving on meant forgetting Lily, forgetting what Dad had done. It meant becoming just another tragic backstory in the high school gossip mill. After school, Mom was waiting exactly where she'd promised. Her face was anxious as I slid into the passenger seat. How was it? Survivable. She drove in silence for a while, then said, I've been thinking about what you said, about Lily and the ocean. Yeah? There's a beach about 3 hours north. Quiet, private. We could go this weekend if you want. Scatter her ashes somewhere peaceful. I thought about it. Lily had never seen the ocean, but she'd dreamed about it. Had pictures of beaches taped inside her locker, places she'd go when she turned 18 and we could leave together. Okay, I said. This weekend. The week crawled by. Each day got marginally easier as newer gossip displaced mine. Someone's parents were getting divorced. Someone else had gotten suspended for vaping in the bathroom. Normal dramas that didn't involve death and revenge and family destruction. Friday afternoon, I was cleaning out my locker when I found it. A note tucked behind my chemistry textbook. Lily's handwriting, faded but unmistakable. For my little sister, you're stronger than you know. When things get bad, remember that you're going to change the world someday. Love always, L. I stared at the note, my hands shaking. She must have slipped it in there before that last night. A final message I'd never found until now. You okay? Sarah appeared beside me, concern creasing her face. I showed her the note. She read it, then pulled me into a hug. She knew how amazing you are. I don't feel amazing, I admitted. I feel like I destroyed everything. You exposed the truth, Sarah said firmly. That's not destruction, that's justice. But justice felt hollow when Lily was still gone. Saturday morning dawned gray and cold. Mom packed thermoses of coffee and sandwiches we probably wouldn't eat. The urn sat between us in the car. Lily's ashes finally going somewhere Dad couldn't touch them. The drive north was quiet. Mom tried the radio, but every song seemed wrong. Eventually, we drove in silence, watching the landscape change from suburban sprawl to rural emptiness to coastal beauty. The beach she'd chosen was perfect. Rocky cliffs gave way to a small cove, waves crashing against dark sand. No one else was there. Too cold for casual beachgoers throwers, too remote for easy access. We climbed down carefully, Mom carrying the urn like precious cargo. The wind whipped our hair around our faces, salt spray stinging our eyes. Should we say something? Mom asked when we reached the water's edge. I thought about all the things I wanted to say, how sorry I was that I couldn't save her, how grateful I was for every blow she'd taken for me, how angry I was that she'd given up, how much I missed her every single day. Instead, I just opened the urn. The ashes were lighter than I'd expected. The wind caught them immediately, carrying them out over the waves. Some settled on the dark sand. Some rose up toward the clouded sky. Most scattered across the ocean she'd never seen but always dreamed about. I love you, I whispered to the wind. I'll make you proud. Mom wrapped her arm around me as we watched the last of the ashes disappear. She already was proud, she said. She told me once before I left. Said you were going to be something special. When did she tell you that? The night before I ran. Mom's voice was thick with tears. She was 11, found me packing, asked me to take you both. When I said I couldn't, she made me promise to come back for you someday. But you didn't. No, Mom admitted. I was too scared, too weak, just like he always said. We stood there until our feet went numb from the cold water, until the urn was empty and Lily was finally free, until the sun broke through the clouds, just for a moment, painting the ocean gold. On the drive home, something felt different. Lighter maybe, or maybe just finished. The revenge, the investigation, the trial, it was all over. Now came the harder part, living with what remained. I want to set up a scholarship, I said suddenly, in Lily's name, for kids who need to escape. Mom glanced at me, surprised. That's a beautiful idea. She protected me, I said. Maybe we can protect others. We'll need money, Mom said practically. Fundraising, applications, legal setup. Dad had life insurance, I said. On all of us. Lily's policy should pay out now that the investigation's over. Mom's hands tightened on the wheel. You want to use his insurance money? I want to turn his greed into something good, I corrected. Something that would make him furious and Lily proud. We spent the rest of the drive planning. Mom knew lawyers who could help with the legal structure. I could reach out to domestic violence organizations for partnership. We could start small. One scholarship a year for a senior escaping an abusive home. By the time we reached Mom's apartment, we had the skeleton of a plan. It felt good to think about the future instead of being trapped in the past. That night, I sat at Mom's kitchen table filling out college applications, chemistry programs at schools far from here, places where no one would know my story, where I could start fresh. You know you'll have to write about it, Mom said, reading over my shoulder. The personal essay. They'll want to know about challenges you've overcome. I stared at the blank document. How did you condense this into 650 words? How did you explain driving your father insane with guilt, only to have him frame you for murder? How did you make admissions officers understand that you were more than your trauma? Just tell the truth, Mom suggested. About Lily, about survival, about choosing to build something from the ashes. So I wrote. About a sister who stood between me and violence. About a father who saw us as possessions to control. About the thin line between justice and revenge. About learning that strength sometimes meant knowing when to fight and when to let go. It took hours, writing and deleting and writing again. Mom made tea and sat with me, occasionally offering suggestions but mostly just being present. It was the kind of moment we should have had years ago. Mother and daughter, planning for college. Better late than never, maybe. When I finally finished, it was past midnight. The essay wasn't perfect, but it was honest. It told our story without sensationalizing it, focused on growth rather than grief. I'm proud of you, Mom said, reading the final version. Lily would be too. I hope so, I said. Monday brought another week of school, but it felt different now. The stares had mostly stopped. The whispers had moved on to other scandals. I was becoming just another senior trying to survive until graduation. Jake partnered with me in chemistry lab, where we worked on titrations and tried not to think about the last time we'd been lab partners before everything exploded. Any word on colleges? He asked, measuring sodium hydroxide. Not yet. You? State University probably. Stay close to home. He paused. You're leaving, aren't you? As far as I can get, I admitted. Can't blame you. He added indicator to our solution, watching it turn pink. This place has too many ghosts. After school, I had my first appointment with a real therapist. Not a social worker checking for signs of violence, not a court-appointed evaluator, but someone Mom had found who specialized in trauma and family dysfunction. Dr. Patel's office was nothing like the gray interrogation rooms I'd grown used to. Soft colors, comfortable chairs, a white noise machine that masked the sounds from the hallway. Tell me why you're here, she said after the introductions. Because everyone thinks I need therapy after what happened, I said. And what do you think? I considered lying, giving her the easy answers, but I was tired of performance. I think I've been in survival mode so long I don't know how to stop. I think I'm angry all the time and I don't know where to put it. I think I miss my sister so much it physically hurts, but I'm also furious at her for leaving me. Dr. Patel nodded like this made perfect sense. Those are all normal responses to abnormal situations. Let's start with the anger. We talked for an hour, barely scratching the surface. She didn't try to fix me or offer platitudes about healing, just listened and occasionally asked questions that made me think. I'd like to see you weekly, she said as our time ended. This kind of trauma takes time to process. Everyone wants me to move on, I said. Get over it. Focus on the future. Moving forward doesn't mean forgetting, Dr. Patel said. It means learning to carry the weight differently. I thought about that as Mom drove me home, carrying the weight differently, not putting it down, not pretending it didn't exist, just finding a way to bear it that didn't crush me. That night, I got my first college acceptance. Early admission to a chemistry program 1,200 miles away. Full scholarship based on merit and need. Mom cried when I showed her. It's so far. I know, but it's what you want. It's what I need, I said. A fresh start, somewhere Lily would have loved. We celebrated with Chinese takeout and plans for the future. The scholarship fund was taking shape. Mom had found a lawyer willing to work pro bono, moved by our story. The life insurance payout would fund at least 10 years of awards. We should have a selection committee, Mom suggested. Teachers, counselors, survivors who've made it out, and someone who didn't make it represented, I added. Lily's voice somehow. We brainstormed late into the night, building something good from the wreckage Dad had left behind. It felt like defiance, like victory, like the best revenge really was living well. The weeks passed in a blur of college acceptances, scholarship applications, and slow healing. Therapy helped, though some days were harder than others. Graduation approached with all its bittersweet promise. 2 weeks before the ceremony, a letter arrived at Mom's apartment. Official prison stationery, Dad's handwriting. I stared at it for a long time before opening it. Mom hovered nearby, ready to snatch it away if needed. My darling daughter, it began, and I almost threw it away right there. But morbid curiosity won. The letter was a masterpiece of manipulation. Apologies that weren't really apologies. Blame disguised disguised as acceptance, subtle threats wrapped in paternal concern. He wrote about finding God, about rehabilitation, about hoping I could forgive him someday. Don't let him in your head, Mom said, reading over my shoulder. But he was already there, had been my whole life. The difference now was that I could see the strings he was trying to pull. I threw the letter away without responding. Let him sit in his cell wondering if I'd gotten it, if his words had found their mark. It was a small power, but it was mine. Graduation day dawned bright and clear. I stood in my cap and gown, surrounded by classmates who'd known me through the worst year of my life. Some had been cruel, some had been kind. Most had just been human, flawed, and trying their best. Mom sat in the audience with Aunt, both of them crying before the ceremony even started. I'd reserved a third seat, Lily's graduation cap resting on it. She should have walked 2 years ago. This was the closest I could give her. When they called my name, I walked across the stage on steady legs. Principal Morrison handed me my diploma with a smile that might have been genuine. Congratulations. You've earned this. I thought about everything that had led to this moment. The recordings, the packages, the number 17 haunting Dad's every moment, the investigation that had nearly destroyed me, the trial that had set me free, but mostly I thought about Lily, how proud she'd be. It was everything. It was just the beginning.